welcome to Stay Awake. It is your old buddy John coming to you from the RSN studios here in beautiful downtown Rutherford, North Carolina on a Sunday afternoon that's clouding over. They instead of embracing their similarities and actually working through their problems, they take things that divide them and make molehills into mountains. That's what we have between the Democrats and Republicans right now. We have two political parties in this country that at one time, a generation or so ago, could work together could compromise, could actually govern together. They had some disagreements and they had their fights and whatnot, and politics has never been a clean sport, but at least at the end of the day, they would be able to get together and actually do something constructive. Actually put together meaningful legislation. Sadly, in the last, I would say probably 20 years or so, maybe longer, we've seen that gridlock is almost a perpetual state in Washington. And even now, right now, where we're dealing with a sequester that's been going on for 3 months, over 3 months. You have federal employees that have been furloughed, who've had their hours cut, and we're supposed to embrace this? We're supposed to like this? Our government is failing right now because both political parties can't work together. Now, on one side, you have the Democrats who are pretty much a party of the people in the sense that you have moderate, even some conservative Democrats who tend to be more along the lines of what the vast majority of Americans believe in. They want jobs, they want a good middle class, a strong middle class, fairness for workers, but fair regulations for business, not over-regulation, but just fair regulation. But you've got your hardcore liberals that want to take a single issue and make it into a mountain out of a molehill. If you don't agree with them on this one issue, then to hell with you. The same can be said for Republicans. You've got a few Republicans who are old school Republicans. They're conservative, but they can work with moderates and liberals and get something done. They understand the give and take of politics, that you're not going to get everything that you want, that you try and get as much as you can, but you're not going to get everything that you want. And it used to be that you tried and give the other guy as much as you could stomach without compromising what you want out of the bill. Back in the old days, there wouldn't have been a sequester because you'd had some moderates in both parties who came together, crossed the aisle, worked together, and got stuff done. That doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because you have these special interest groups who believe compromise is an evil, dirty word that damns you to hell. They're running things. The politicians don't really run things anymore. They're just there to do at their master's bidding, whichever special interest group they cater to. And that's a sad fact. On the Republican side, you have a lot of people who cater to big business and religious groups, which is a very dangerous combination, because generally people who are very, very filthy rich generally don't feel compelled to be giving to the government to help people who aren't as fortunate out. They are embracing the Ayn Rand philosophy of what's mine is mine and what's yours should be mine, but I can't legally get it yet, but I'm going to do my damnedest to try. Why is it that we're so persecuting of people who are doing their best to try and find a job, but for some reason they can't seem to get one? It's like in my state of North Carolina, they cut back on the amount of unemployment you can get, which is about now to 20 weeks, and they cut the maximum you can get to $350 a week. Now, if you're a single parent household and you just got laid off from your job and you've got kids to feed and you've already been on welfare, you've already been on food stamps, I should say, and you can't, and you want to work, but you also have to support your kids. You need a job that pays enough to where you can support your kids. But yet, you're told 20 weeks, you're out of luck. You try to go to McDonald's. They don't want to hire you because they feel like that you're looking for another job, and they'd rather pay a pimply-faced teeny bopper who doesn't have a future the same rate, and they can keep them there because they don't mind being treated like crap. You, on the other hand, might stand up, might change things, might want to, you're used to being treated well to me, it seems like in our nation today, the powers that be only cater to the special interests. They don't cater to the real people. And it's like with my Republican friends who believe that Obama's the Antichrist. Well, have you ever actually stopped to look at what he's actually doing? He isn't really that good of a Democrat. Look at the stock market. The stock market is going through the roof. Wall Street loves the guy. At the same time, they hate the fact that he'd like to regulate the hell out of him. And he should regulate the hell out of him. But, unfortunately, there's enough political power that Wall Street has that keeps this from happening. What happened in 2008 when we had the financial meltdown was not the fault of welfare queens. It wasn't the fault of illegal immigrants. It wasn't the fault of kids who are going to college and are having student loans and they are having difficulty trying to pay them off. It's not the fault of Granny in a rest home who has paid everything, who worked hard all her life alongside her husband. Her husband isn't around anymore. Her kids are busy with their own lives, and all she wants is to live the last few lives. And to me, we have become so hated. And let me try and express this. The most vulnerable people in our nation, the homeless, the sick, the elderly, the kids, they've become the most hated by those people in power because, they don't give back campaign contributions. Why should we help people who don't want to help us financially? Why are we paying so many billions and billions of dollars to industries that pull in ridiculous profits? Why are we funding stadiums for billions of dollars. Yeah, they're wonderful to look at, and they probably are great if you're really, really rich to go to watch a football game. But that's taking money away from schools. That's taking money away from feeding the homeless and helping the homeless, perhaps, I don't know, not be homeless anymore. But that's not the GOP doesn't see it that way. They feel that these people are leeches, when in fact, if with a little bit of help, they might actually be contributing to society. Everybody wonders why things aren't like they once were in the so-called good old days. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and to be perfectly honest with you, save for a few years during the Clinton administration, when things were getting, starting to look like they might actually get back to the boom times of the 50s, where economy was doing really, really well. And by the way, we had a Republican who actually believed in labor and actually believed in Social Security and taking care of the poor. A real Republican like Dwight Eisenhower, who would be a damned liberal socialist Marxist these days, according to Fox News. And let me go on to this. I try to read from both sides of the political fence, and I can't stand reading conservative websites anymore because in a lot of ways it's become blatant propaganda. The president could find a cure for cancer, and the Republicans and the GOP, the Republicans and the conservative talk shows and Fox News would say he's destroying the healthcare industry. When in fact, the healthcare industry these days makes money off you being sick. They don't want to find cures. Why find a cure? That means, hey, you get a shot, you get cured of cancer. That means you don't have to go to the hospital, you don't have to have chemotherapy, you don't have to have radiation. That puts us out of business. Why are we wanting to put ourselves out of business? And the first attempt to actually make things fair failed. Obamacare is not what it should be. Sad to say. Obamacare isn't what it has to be. Why do people have to go bankrupt treating their kid with cancer? Oh, but the community will come together and help these families out. Increasingly, though, we're finding that people are much more selfish. They're like, I can't help. And here's the crazy thing. In my job, I do fundraising for charitable organizations. Perhaps you heard the last show when I went into that. And what I have found is people aren't as giving as they used to be. Or the perception is, yeah, they give, but they don't really want to give. You have to guilt them into giving. And there's a lot of selfishness out there these days. And a lot of the folks who should be giving aren't giving because, hey, they got to have a Maserati. They got to have the big yacht. They got to have the big mansion. They got to have the big diamond necklace for their trophy wife. Because, they want to keep her around and, just have her banging the gardener and not going out and banging some young stud that might actually have a bright future and maybe making more money than they could. But here's the thing. once upon a time in this country, we all were working toward the American dream. The rich were investing in businesses and being charitable and all of this. And, America wasn't what it should be because we still had plenty of racism. We still had a lot of inequality. But as racism is slowly ebbing away, we still have it. It's just not nearly as bad as it used to be. We have homophobia. That's the new civil rights. And the right wants you to believe that these people have an evil agenda for America. That evil agenda is they have the audacity to want to get married, to want to have kids together, to adopt kids, to raise loving families. But no, their lifestyle is evil. They're trashing traditional marriage, which, if you really want to look at it, divorce is supposed to trash traditional marriage, but yet we still have it. There are a few radicals who want to get rid of it, but the reality is 1 in 2 marriages in this country will fail. But yet we're going after divorce, not marriage. We're making it's ridiculous easy. I mean, I could go and find some young woman off the street. Let's say I was a rich guy and found some beautiful young woman off the street and waved a bunch of cash in her face and said, "Hey, let's go down to Gaffney or Pigeon Forge or whatever and get married." I could be married to that woman by the end of the day. That's an extreme example, but that's reality. You look at 2 young people in love that aren't necessarily that experienced with the world and don't really have an idea that, forever is a long, long time, and you've only been dating for 3 months. Oh, you're so in love. You want to get married. And it does not just happen to teenagers. It does happen to adults. Trust me on that. And it's easy to get married, but it's hard to get a divorce. Why shouldn't it be hard to get married and hard to get a divorce? Marriage should not be something that should be easily gotten into, but we're told, hey, you shouldn't mess with marriage. Gays shouldn't get married. They're not able to procreate. Well, they could if, gays were to deal with a lesbian friend of theirs that wanted to have a kid and they adopted it, and I don't know, it just seems like that we're so partisan these days, it's not even funny. I mean, look at abortion. Yeah, I have quite a few pro-choice friends. A lot of them are women. Not all of them are jumping up and down wanting to have an abortion. Oh, let me get pregnant so I can go have an abortion. And there are a few women who, and I think you've seen the post on Facebook, where this young, idiotic woman who's gotten pregnant who says, 50 likes and I'll keep the baby. Well, probably that wasn't actually, that's something that was put there as a joke. But, there are some women who use abortion as birth control. Not that many women, because last I heard, abortion's a very invasive procedure. It's not very comfortable. Most women that I have heard that have had abortions really had a hard time dealing with the fact that they were going to have an abortion. They weren't jumping up and down and celebrating the fact they were going to have an abortion, they really were troubled by it. And a lot of the reason they were going to have the abortions, they were being told, no, you cannot have a kid. No, you're not ready. The boyfriend's telling them that they should not have a kid. The friends are saying you ruined your life, and the parents are not very supportive, and they're basically, the whole system we have is so stupid. We believe teenagers should not have any sex at all, but yet we don't understand that teenagers tend to be rebellious, and they tend to sometimes be defiant and will do things just because an adult says you shouldn't do them. And because, you need, and this is the thing that a lot of parents don't realize. The parents have to be the bad guy sometimes, but you got to have a good guy. You got to have somebody that says, hey, you shouldn't get pregnant. Yeah, parents don't really want their kids learning about condoms and sex education. But the reality is the information's out there anyway. And if you try and keep your kids away from it, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Why is it that so many teen pregnancies happen in the States where they have abstinence-only sex education? Think about it. We really don't... Why not have sex... abstinence-emphasized sex education, where we basically tell them, yeah, you can use a condom that more often than not you will not get pregnant, but that condom is not perfect. That condom could break. You could get pregnant, or you could contract an STD. Whereas if you don't have sex, you're 100% guaranteed not getting pregnant, not getting an STD. And oral sex is sex, anal sex is sex. Let's stop this nonsense that some people perceive, oh, no, I just went down on my boyfriend. That's not really sex, so I'm still a pure virginal girl. Now, you can get an STD from oral sex. You can get an STD from anal sex. And yes, AIDS is still out there, folks. They haven't cured it. You don't hear that much about it anymore. It's still out there. And no, it's not necessarily because of the gay people. It's out there. It can hit straight people just as well as gay people. So, it's ridiculous. It really is. And there's no compromise anymore. We can't compromise on abortion going, well, we can have abortions, but after the second trimester, you should have made a decision whether or not you're going to have a kid or not. And so after the second trimester, unless there's a medical emergency or the kid is so, would basically be so... the medical condition for the kid is such that the kid wouldn't probably live anyway, or if he lived, he would be in such dire straits that it would really not be prudent to have the kid live. The kid, it'd basically be a mercy killing, essentially, which I don't really find all that appealing, but, would you want to bring somebody in the world that was already deaf, dumb, and blind, as much as you love them? But I think after the second trimester, if the woman's not had the abortion yet, unless it's because of rape, incest, or a medical emergency with the mother, I think maybe you shouldn't have an abortion. You should have made the decision. or at least it should be not as easy to get the abortion. Maybe they're being pressured to have the abortion because the boyfriend all of a sudden goes, I don't think I really want to be a father after all. Go get rid of the kid, And the insanity of the day is we've actually have people who are saying that miscarriages should be prosecuted. I've known women who've had miscarriages. The vast majority of them were very torn up about having a miscarriage. They didn't really want to have a miscarriage. And now you've got people who are advocating that, hey, we should prosecute these people because, they dared to have a miscarriage. They did something to force them to have something. No, they didn't. It's ridiculous. And I could go off on the left, too. What's the harm in letting a preacher give an invocation at a football or baseball or basketball game? As long as they're saying convert to Christ, and as long as they're not saying convert to Christ, if I'm an atheist and somebody's wanting to pray for my kid to make sure they don't get hurt, that's fine. I don't believe in God, but hey, if they want to make the gesture to say, hey, my God's going to protect your kid, I'm like, well, I don't believe in your God, but hey, fine, knock yourself out. And, when it comes to, is it really that bad that, hey, there's a manger scene on the front lawn of the courthouse, is it really that bad of a thing, And the Jewish community says, hey, can we put a menorah out there? And they say, oh, okay, we'll let you put a menorah out there. I mean, to me, as long as it's not sponsored directly from the government, if the government says, hey, local church wants to as long as they put a sign saying this is sponsored by First Baptist Church of Butt Scratch, South Carolina, Yes, I'm a North Carolinian and we like to bash the South Carolinians, okay? And one last thing, completely off topic. Where the hell did this North Kakalaki and South Kakalaki crap come up with? I until about maybe 5 years ago, I didn't even know this term existed. And I have lived in North Carolina my entire life. And here all of a sudden you hear North Kakalaki, South Kakalaki. I'm like, what? All right, enough of that. We got to find ways to build bridges toward one another, find common ground, because if we don't, we're going to split apart. And it ain't going to be like the North and South back in the 1860s either. It's going to be real ugly. And like Abraham Lincoln once said, or was it Abraham? Was it Abraham Lincoln that said the only country that could defeat America is America? That is true. The only country that can bring down America is America. And we're doing a damn good job of bringing this country down right now. And it's not the Democrats' fault entirely. It's not the Republicans' fault entirely. But it's their fault. It's our fault. And we got to find a way to stop this madness before we go over the cliff. And we can't stop it. Folks, take it easy. Hope you have a great weekend. And God bless you. Good night, good luck, and may the good news be yours.